Thanks very much to welcome us. Can you just explain us what they experiencing in this session? What is just listening? What is this method?
Well, I suppose just listening is really about seeking to offer justice to whatever story someone has to tell in that moment. So we're not concerned with psychotherapy or treatment, but we're saying that there's many conversations in the world about how we've lost connection and we've lost a sense of community. And all the models pay attention to all mental health and mental illness and getting better, but we're saying that maybe what we need is to remember how to be in relationship. And so if I listen with justice to whatever your story is, then we'll feel more connected. So don't worry about fixing someone or changing something or making it better or making it worse, but just pay attention to what's the story that you want to share, that you're on your own with and that you're carrying on your own, and maybe I can just walk with you for 5 minutes or 5 hours or 1 hour. And when you've told that story, it will come out of your head and you'll hear it differently outside of your mind. So you speak it out here and I'll listen, and then you'll hear it differently as it bounces off me.
And for people who have psychiatric troubles, is it the beginning of your method or is it enough?
Well, I think when we think about psychiatric troubles or mental illness or mental health, I don't really accept those ideas as having legitimacy, other than their conversations we have. So take schizophrenia, which is a very well-known psychiatric label. It's made up. It's an idea that someone had in the 1920s, and we're in 2024, and we still talk about schizophrenia. But what we really mean is someone's in great distress, and they're alone with their distress. So just listening is just inviting us to be with those people. So we're not trying to get rid of voices or visions. We're just seeking to say, I wonder what you want to tell me. I wonder what would make you feel more in connection in your experience of living. But you know, for me, I had diagnosis of schizophrenia when I was 21, 22. I don't know where it went. It's not here. What I was is very distressed, and I heard voices and saw visions, but there was nothing wrong with my brain. I was just reacting to the world in which I lived in. I was abused as a child. I was homeless. Bad things happened to me many times, and the way I experienced the world was through hearing voices and seeing visions. And when I had relationships with people without them trying to change that, then the voices and visions went away. So I think just listening is useful to talk to people who might be told they have mental illness or psychiatric problems, but with the same essence, which is, oh, maybe we can walk together for a little bit. And I'll do that by listening to you and offering justice to your story. So, my theory, if you're psychotic, you're hearing voices, I can't bear that, because if you and I are the same, we're just humans, and if you might hear voices and be crazy, then that could happen to me. So I need to stop you having that happen to you, and then I'm not so frightened. That's nothing to do with you, that's all about me. So just listening is saying, oh, hold on to all those stories, and you tell me about you.
You talk about mental health industry. How did you suffer from this industry yourself?
Well, I think the mental health industry is humans. So we talk about it as this thing, but it's all of us. We're all in it. I presume we're all getting paid today, so we're all part of that industry. And my experience in that industry was that people who were generally good humans, doctors, nurses, workers, family members, people that wanted to do good, got told what they should do. So I got put in hospital because I was a risk to myself and risk to other people, I suppose, I don't know. They gave me electroconvulsive therapy, you know, ECT, where they put the electricity into your brain, which I think is degrading and humiliating and violent. I think it's... But the doctor that gave me ECT, he didn't start as a violent man. So the industry said to him, we have this wonderful thing you can do to this young boy. Well, we do still do that. So I think the industry says, this is what to do. And then the humans who need work or go along with the so-called evidence, they say, oh yeah, we'll try that. And that's what I experienced, was good people who got lost in their journeys and did bad things. And I don't think for 1 minute that nurse at the start of her career thought, I know, I'm going to go into nursing to lock people in padded cells. She didn't think that. But she ended up doing it. So I think it's like a collective of humans. They agree to think. There's something about the disconnect between what's the norm and then people come along and join in, versus what's really in our hearts as individuals, which is, you know, I like you, Jeremy. I feel warm towards you. I feel loving towards you. How does that change just because you're in distress? Why would I not think, oh, I met this really nice guy. I feel really warm with him. And now he wants to kill himself. Oh, remember I was feeling really warm to him. Maybe I'll spend some more time with him. Instead of saying, oh, you need to go now. You need to go over there now. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
What about people who look dangerous? What would be your method with someone telling, I have voices who ask me to kill you and I'm going to do that?
I think they're telling me that they're scared of me. Maybe something's happened today or in this relationship that's made that happen. I feel a bit scared. I feel scared. And maybe you say, oh yeah, I'm scared as well. And then we notice that we have something in common rather than being different. So it's not to say that sometimes people aren't violent, but if you go to a pub tonight, there'll be violent people. So I think rather than understanding what do you do with a psychiatric patient who's aggressive or has voices telling you to be violent, what do you do with them? I think you should say, what do you do in the pub tonight when someone gets a bottle and says, I'm going to hit you? We don't say, oh, you're mentally ill. So something's happened in their life to make them angry. So I think it's the same. I don't think there's any difference. In fact, I would say a person who's drunk too much in a pub is more dangerous than any person who's in emotional distress. So again, I think it's about getting alongside them and saying, I'm human, you're human, we're both scared. Maybe we're not really scared of each other. We're scared of things that are happening in the world.
Did you try it? Did it happen?
What?
Sometime? The person telling you that? And
yes.
You're reacting like that? It worked?
Yes. Often. I mean, so in Just Listening Centre, we made a decision. If someone is violent, enacts violence, then we call the police. And then we haven't had one person be violent here in 4 or 5 years. We don't have any security, no alarms. We've never called the police. So I think some of it is about the mentality of the listener, that how do we come into relationship? How do we be in relationship? Because then the violence doesn't need to be there. But if we're not in relationship, then maybe you're scared because your voices are scared. I know that threatening someone by, so you're scared and I start coming towards you, stop this, stop this, stop this. Well, how can you feel anything but more scared? Maybe if I sit still and let you come towards me gently, maybe you're in more control, you've got more power. If I come like this, stop it, well then you're going to be more scared. So, and I think that's just life with humans. You know, if you go towards a dog and you frighten the dog, so don't do that to dogs or people or anyone. It sounds too simple, but I think it's true.
About your personal stories, you talked to me about what happened to you. It was in Great Britain, I think.
Yes, in England, yeah.
The hospital, the electricity.
ECT, yeah.
after, what saved you, and what happened until the opening of this place?
Well, yeah, I was in and out of hospital for a long time, and then they didn't know what to do with me because I had lots of medication and nothing changed. I was very scared. I tried to kill myself twice, and eventually someone said, you should go and live in a house with 7 other people like you. So we were called treatment-resistant psychotic people, and so we lived together, 8 of us in a house, and we just had 3 staff who were very kind and beautiful, and we just lived together. No one talked about diagnosis, no one talked about risk. We were all quite mad at times. And then gradually we did things together as a community. We went to the pub, went to college, played soccer, real life together. And gradually my voices stopped being there. Became less scared, decided not to kill myself. Thought maybe I'd try living in a different way. And then trained as a psychotherapist and then a nurse in England. Met my wife. Thought about becoming a Buddhist monk. Decided not to. And then decided I'd learnt something from living with people. And so then I'd like to try and make that more real in this life. And this was my dream, I suppose, to have a community where we could come together and be in relationship.
Find the occasion to meet someone, to be well with someone.
Finding safety amongst people is the only thing we've got as humans. So I think going back to my experience of coming out of the psychiatric system, I became less frightened of other people by living with people that the world were frightened of. You know, 8 of us who were very mentally unwell according to the world, actually it was very safe and kind, sometimes crazy, sometimes scary, but generally we became safe together. And it wasn't the nurses or the doctors or the medication or the hospital. It was the relationships of the people. I was talking to my daughter last night. Where do I want to go when I'm distressed? I want to go home. I want to go home to my wife and my children. Not because they have to do anything, but they're the people that I'm most likely to feel safe and loved with. So I want to go home. And I think if we're in mental distress, often it's about finding where your home is amongst other people.
Would you think that medicines and psychiatric hospitals are useless? Do you think it's useless for all people if we all are convinced about your method?
Yeah. I think an important point is we should not force people to have these things. And in Australia and France and England and many countries, we have mental health acts, legal processes which says, I can take you away and put you here. I don't agree with that. It's broken. We have the Geneva Convention on Human Rights. The Mental Health Act does not meet the requirements of the Human Rights Act. And yet the world pretends it does. So when I become mentally unwell or distressed, one of my fears is that someone might take away my freedom as well as me feeling distressed. Now someone can take me away. What just listening's about is, I think you'll tell me. If I can be enough listening to you, then you'll tell me what you want. And you might say, you know, Matt, I really could do with some Valium just to help me feel calmer. Oh, well, have some Valium then. I could really do with going running in the forest. I suggest you do that then. You know, I like running. I like running on the beach. I really like running for 10, 15, 20 kilometers. I feel better afterwards. But if I get caught in the mental health system, never would they say to me, have you thought about going running for 15 kilometers? Maybe they should.
What would you say? I was a journalist. What would you say to journalists or medias who talk about murders of people who say, oh, I heard voices asking me to kill. And that's a source of fear for public opinion.
Yes.
what would you advise to do? Not to talk about that? To talk differently about that?
So I think just as me as a nurse, then you as a journalist, we have the same responsibility. If I inject someone with a drug because they've got a mental disorder, I need to go and examine what mental disorders really are, because in the end they're an ideology. And I think we could say the same to journalists. And I think journalists would enjoy it more if they wrote stories about beautiful humans who were suffering rather than moronic, crazy people that kill people. And that's no different to what I'm saying about listening deeply to anyone. We need to listen to the journalists. Why do you write these things? I think most of them would end up saying, because that's the narrative in our society, so we write to that narrative. Well, maybe you'll be free if you go and examine that. So I'm very grateful.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, that's passion. Yeah, very emotional for me.